The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the ancient ruins of Perge. I stood at the entrance of the site, my heart racing with anticipation. The air was heavy with history, and I could almost hear the whispers of the past echoing through the crumbling columns and worn cobblestones. Perge, a city that had thrived in the Roman Empire, was now a treasure trove of stories waiting to be uncovered. As I stepped through the ancient archway, I felt as though I was crossing a threshold into another world, one where the echoes of civilization mingled with the rustling leaves of the surrounding trees. The first thing that struck me was the grandeur of the agora, the central marketplace. The vast open space was dotted with the remnants of shops and stalls, their foundations still visible beneath layers of earth. I imagined the vibrant life that once filled this area, merchants hawking their wares, townsfolk haggling over prices, and travelers exchanging tales of distant lands. I could almost see the colorful fabrics fluttering in the breeze and smell the spices that would have wafted through the air. As I wandered through the ruins, I stumbled upon a mosaic that caught my eye. Its intricate patterns depicted scenes from mythology, vibrant colors still vivid despite the passage of time. I knelt down to get a closer look, tracing the outline of a figure with my fingers. It felt like a connection to the past, a reminder of the artistry and craftsmanship that had flourished here. Continuing my exploration, I ventured towards the theater, a magnificent structure that had once hosted performances and gatherings. The seats, carved from stone, rose steeply, offering a panoramic view of the stage below. I could picture the crowds, dressed in their finest garments, laughing and applauding as actors brought stories to life. I climbed to the highest row, my heart racing as I imagined the thrill of being part of such an audience. The acoustics were remarkable. Even the slightest whisper could carry across the space. I closed my eyes and envisioned the laughter, the gasps of surprise, and the applause that had once filled this place. As I descended, I noticed a narrow passageway leading to the backstage area. Curiosity piqued, I slipped through the archway and found myself in a dimly lit corridor lined with faded frescoes. They depicted scenes of gods and goddesses, their expressions frozen in time. I could almost hear the echoes of rehearsals, the rustle of costumes, and the excitement of performers preparing to step into the spotlight. At the end of the corridor, I discovered a small room filled with fragments of ancient artifacts. There were pottery shards, remnants of tools, and even a few coins, each telling its own story of everyday life in Perge. Among the artifacts, one item stood out, a small, intricately carved amulet. It was shaped like a bird, its wings outstretched as if ready to take flight. I held it in my palm, feeling its weight and the smoothness of the stone. I imagined the person who had once worn it, perhaps a child or a young woman, believing it would bring them good fortune or protection. The thought sent a shiver down my spine, as if I had touched a piece of their life, a fragment of their hopes and dreams. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the ruins, I made my way to the ancient city walls. The stones were weathered and worn, but they stood tall, a testament to the strength and resilience of a civilization long gone. I climbed to the top, where I could see the sprawling landscape beyond. The view was breathtaking, the rolling hills and distant mountains painted in hues of orange and purple. It was easy to imagine the city in its prime, bustling with life and energy, a hub of trade and culture. In that moment, I felt a deep connection to the history of Perge. This was not just a collection of ruins. It was a living testament to the people who had once called it home. I thought of the families who had walked these streets, the children who had played in the agora, and the elders who had shared stories of the past. Each stone held a memory, each artifact a whisper of a life once lived. As night fell, I found myself drawn to the remnants of the bathhouse, a place where the citizens of Perge would have gathered to socialize and relax. The architecture was stunning, with intricate arches and columns that still retained a sense of grandeur. I could almost hear the laughter of friends, the splash of water, and the sound of conversation filling the air. I wandered through the various rooms, from the frigidarium to the caldarium, imagining the rituals of cleansing and rejuvenation that had taken place here. In one corner, I discovered a small pool, its surface still reflecting the faint light of the moon. I knelt beside it, peering into the water. The reflection of the stars shimmered above, and for a moment, I felt as though I was witnessing a timeless connection between the past and the present. I closed my eyes and allowed my mind to wander, envisioning the bathers of Ancient Perge, their laughter mingling with the sound of splashing water, their stories intertwining like the ripples on the surface of the pool. The following day, I set out to explore the outskirts of Perge, where the remnants of the city's defenses still stood. The walls, though crumbling, were a reminder of the city's strategic importance in the region. I walked along the path that led to the ancient gates, imagining the guards who once stood watch, their eyes scanning the horizon for approaching travelers or threats. As I reached the gates, I noticed carvings etched into the stone, symbols and inscriptions that had weathered the test of time. I traced my fingers over the markings, feeling a sense of reverence for the artisans who had created them, their skill and artistry preserved in a world that had changed so much. Further along, I stumbled upon a hidden pathway that led to a series of underground tunnels. The entrance was obscured by overgrown foliage, but my curiosity urged me to explore. Armed with nothing but my flashlight, I descended into the darkness. The air was cool and damp, and the walls were lined with ancient bricks, each one telling a story of its own. As I ventured deeper, I discovered chambers filled with pottery and tools, remnants of a time when these tunnels had served as storage or escape routes during times of conflict. One chamber in particular caught my attention. It was larger than the others, with a high ceiling and a faint glimmer of light reflecting off the walls. As I stepped inside, I gasped. The room was filled with artifacts, jars, coins, and sculptures, all meticulously arranged, as if waiting for their moment to be discovered. I felt like an intruder in a sacred space, a place where the past was preserved in its entirety. Among the treasures, I noticed a beautifully crafted statue of a woman, her features delicate and serene. She seemed to embody the spirit of Perge, a guardian of its history and secrets. As I examined the statue, I couldn't help but wonder about the stories that had unfolded in this very spot. Who had created her? What significance did she hold for the people of Perge? I imagined the artisans pouring their heart and soul into their work, their hands shaping the clay and carving the stone, each stroke a reflection of their devotion and artistry. Emerging from the tunnels, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was not just a visitor. I was a seeker of stories, a collector of memories that transcended time. I returned to the Agorara, where I sat on the steps of the ancient temple, watching the shadows lengthen as the sun began its descent once more. The site was quiet now, the only sounds the rustle of leaves and the distant call of birds. I closed my eyes and allowed the stories of Perge to wash over me. I imagined the vibrant life that had once filled these spaces, the laughter, the tears, the triumphs and tragedies. Each ruin held a fragment of a life, a moment frozen in time, waiting for someone to listen. I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the opportunity to walk among the remnants of this remarkable city, to connect with the past in a way that felt both profound and humbling. As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, I made my way back to the entrance of Perge, my heart full of stories and secrets. I looked back one last time, the ruins bathed in the soft glow of twilight, and I knew that this place would forever hold a special place in my heart. Perge was not just a collection of stones and artifacts. It was a living tapestry of history, woven together by the lives of those who had come before. And as I stepped through the archway one final time, I felt a sense of peace, knowing that I had become a part of its story, if only for a fleeting moment.